Have you ever wondered why the women who do not chase leave such a haunting mark upon the masculine psyche? Why their absence burns brighter than their presence? Why their silence feels heavier than words? Why their refusal to pursue creates the very hunger that men cannot extinguish? This is not mere preference. This is archetypal. It is the deep river beneath the surface of human attraction, the unconscious dance between anima and animus, between desire and denial, between the soul's yearning and the ego's collapse. Carl Jung understood that what men fear most is not the woman who clings, but the woman who turns away. She becomes the shadow of his desire, the mirror he cannot shatter, the mystery he cannot own. When a woman does not chase, she refuses to feed the male ego's most primitive demand, to be affirmed as the axis of her world. And in that refusal, something far more dangerous is born: obsession. For the male psyche is trained to conquer. From childhood, the boy learns that achievement is measured by what he can claim, control, or possess. But when he meets a woman who does not bend, who does not run after him when he withdraws, his unconscious begins to tremble. Suddenly, he is no longer the hunter. He is the hunted by his own restless thoughts. The detachment of the feminine awakens the unhealed wounds in him, the rejection, the inadequacy, the terror of being unseen. And yet, paradoxically, this is what draws him closer. The woman who does not chase is not cruel. She is sovereign. Her silence is not absence, but presence. Her distance is not neglect, but boundary. To the man, this feels like danger because it strips him of illusions. He cannot lean on her need for him. He cannot hide behind her dependency. He is forced to face his own hollowness, and in that mirror, his soul begins to ache. You can see it in the way his demeanor shifts. At first, he may dismiss her. He may tell himself she is cold, arrogant, or unfeeling. But as the days pass, the image of her grows sharper, not weaker. He remembers her laugh in the quiet hours, the way her eyes looked past him as though seeing through his armor. He remembers the weight of her absence more than the presence of those who still wait by the phone. This is the dangerous mystery of the feminine who does not chase. She teaches him, without a single word, that love is not conquest but recognition. Most men are not prepared for this kind of lesson. The ego resists it. The ego demands attention, validation, pursuit. And when those are denied, the ego feels as though it is dying. Jung called this confrontation with the shadow, the collapse of the self-image, the tearing away of masks. The woman who does not chase becomes the catalyst of this collapse. She pulls him into his own abyss. He cannot control her, so he must finally confront himself. And what about you? Have you ever felt the tension in a man's gaze when you did nothing to win it? When you simply lived in your own presence, without bending toward him, without begging for scraps of his affection? Did you notice how his energy shifted, how his voice grew softer or his persistence stronger? That is not coincidence. That is the eternal polarity between detachment and desire. Stoic philosophers spoke of this paradox as well. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man is enslaved by whatever he cannot walk away from. When a woman does not chase, she places him in this prison of longing. He cannot escape because it is not her he fights, but himself. She is simply the trigger. His shadow is the battlefield. He begins to wonder why her silence consumes him more than her words ever did. He wonders why her distance feels heavier than intimacy. He wonders, but he does not understand that he is standing before the archetype of the untouchable feminine. This archetype is not about cruelty or manipulation. It is about wholeness. A woman who does not chase is a woman who has entered her own individuation. She does not search for completion in another. She does not bleed out her worth in pursuit. She has reclaimed the fragments of her soul and therefore stands unshaken. To the uninitiated man, this is unbearable. To the awakened man, this is holy. The dangerous mystery is this: the more she withholds pursuit, the more he is pulled into pursuit of himself. She does not run after him. She forces him to run toward his own truth. And though he may resist, though he may rage, though he may collapse in denial, he will never forget her. Because she was not merely a woman. She was the mirror. She was the threshold. She was the silence that awakened his shadow. He remembers her in fragments. Not the way other women are remembered, through shared moments, gifts exchanged, or words whispered in the dark, but in flashes of something deeper, almost archetypal. The turn of her head as she walked away, the stillness in her posture when he expected her to lean in, the unspoken message in her silence, I am not yours to claim. These are not memories that fade. They are imprints stamped upon the unconscious, where Jung taught us all the real battles are fought. The woman who does not chase becomes a living paradox. She awakens desire not by offering herself, but by withholding herself. Her refusal to pursue is not rejection, it is revelation. It reveals to the man that what he seeks cannot be found outside himself, and this is why her presence haunts him long after she is gone. She drags him toward the edges of his own shadow, showing him the chasm between the mask he wears and the truth he hides. Most men do not know how to name this feeling. They say she is hard to get, or aloof, or difficult. But these are shallow words for something that cuts into the marrow. What they cannot articulate is that she embodies the archetype of the sovereign feminine, the woman who no longer bargains with her worth. She has passed through fire, through heartbreak, through the crucible of disappointment, and has returned to herself whole. She does not chase because she does not hunger for validation. And in this wholeness, she radiates a force that terrifies and entices in equal measure. Imagine the storm within him. On the surface, he may shrug, tell friends she was not worth the effort, even pretend he feels nothing. But at night, when he is alone with his thoughts, her absence gnaws at him. Why? Because she denied him the familiar game. The game of pursuit and reward, withdrawal and reconciliation, drama and relief. She refused to play. And without the game, he is left with himself, the one opponent he cannot outwit. Here lies the dangerous mystery. To not chase is to unmask the man. Suddenly, his neediness, his fragility, his ego all stand in the open. The woman who does not chase forces him into confrontation with what Epictetus called the slavery of desire. For the Stoics, freedom was not about control over others, but mastery of the self. And yet here he is, bound by the image of a woman who did not beg for his love, bound by her silence, bound by his own longing. You may ask yourself, why does this dynamic cut so deeply? It is because the masculine unconscious projects its anima, its inner feminine, onto the women it meets. And when he encounters a woman who does not chase, that projection shatters. She refuses to carry his fantasy. She returns it to him like a mirror he cannot escape. Suddenly, he sees not her, but the emptiness within himself. Jung called this the crisis of individuation, the collapse of illusion that forces the soul toward growth. But here is the truth many overlook. This mystery is not about men at all. It is about the woman's reclamation of her own essence. When she does not chase, she affirms that she is already complete. She does not grasp at attention because her self-worth is not dangling on another's approval. This kind of sovereignty is magnetic. Men feel it, even if they cannot explain it. They sense the depth, the quiet power, the unshakable center, and it terrifies them because it cannot be controlled. There is, however, a danger for the woman as well. Power always carries temptation. The temptation to weaponize detachment, to manipulate longing, to treat silence as punishment rather than presence. But when a woman's detachment flows from authenticity, from genuine self-possession, it does not poison, it liberates. It creates space where love can be chosen, not demanded. It teaches men that intimacy cannot be taken by force. It must be earned through presence, through truth, through equal depth. So he will circle in his mind, replaying every word, every gesture, wondering what he missed. He will project, fantasize, even resent. But beneath all this turmoil lies the rawest truth. The woman who does not chase has touched his shadow. She has made him aware, perhaps for the first time, of the abyss within. And though he may resist, though he may flee, he will never be free of that imprint. She has become the echo he cannot silence. There comes a moment when the man begins to realize that his obsession is not really about her at all. It is about the image of himself reflected in her refusal. This is the essence of Jung's shadow, the parts of us we disown, the truths we bury, the inadequacies we cannot face. When a woman does not chase, she withholds the balm of reassurance that might cover these wounds. She does not soothe his fear of abandonment. She does not feed his hunger for affirmation. She does not soften the edge of his fragility. Instead, she leaves him alone with it, alone with the ache, alone with himself. This is why her mystery is dangerous. It destabilizes his entire psychic architecture. The man who thought himself powerful, desirable, in control suddenly feels small. He may grow angry, calling her cold or manipulative. He may grow desperate, trying to provoke her attention with games, withdrawal, or even cruelty. But beneath it all, the truth gnaws. He wants what he cannot command. And this inability awakens in him the terror of his own dependency. Think of how most women are taught to behave, to prove their worth through effort, to soften rejection by giving more, to chase after clarity, closure, reassurance. Yet the woman who does not chase embodies the opposite. She does not explain. She does not plead. She does not perform. Her stillness carries the authority of someone who has stepped beyond the cage of approval. She becomes an enigma precisely because she is not trying to be one. And you? Have you felt this power within yourself? The moment you resisted the urge to send the message, to rehearse the words, to run after someone retreating? Did you feel how heavy the silence was, how it almost broke you, and yet how it also anchored you? That silence is the crucible of transformation. In it, you meet the parts of yourself that fear being forgotten. And when you survive it, when you stand without chasing, you taste the first breath of true freedom. The man, on the other hand, is caught in a spiral. He tells himself he does not care, yet he checks for signs of her. He insists she means nothing, yet his dreams betray him. The Jungian anima has lodged itself into his unconscious, binding him to her in a way he cannot name. He is haunted because she refused to carry his projection. He must now either grow or remain enslaved by the ghost of her. Philosophers like Seneca warn that obsession is the opposite of strength. To be consumed by another is to become their prisoner, even if they never intended to capture you. The woman who does not chase holds no chains, yet he feels bound. Why? Because her detachment exposes the chains he already wore, chains of ego, fear, and dependency. She did not enslave him. She simply revealed that he was never free. And here lies the brilliance of feminine sovereignty. She does not need to shout her power. She does not need to prove it. Her refusal to chase is the power. For in a world where desperation is disguised as love and pursuit is confused with devotion, her stillness cuts like a blade. It separates the authentic from the false, the strong from the weak, the man from his masks. To him, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she gave him everything, but because she withheld the one thing he craved most, her pursuit. She forced him to confront that love cannot be taken, only received. That validation cannot be demanded, only given freely. That a woman's presence is not a prize, but a choice. And so, in quiet moments, his mind drifts back. He wonders what it was about her. Was it her beauty, her intelligence, her laughter? He does not realize that it was none of these. It was her refusal, her dangerous mystery, her decision to stand as her own center of gravity. This is why she cannot be forgotten. This is why he dreams of her even when surrounded by others. Because in a single act of not chasing, she reminded him of what he had long buried, that no man is complete without facing his own shadow. And she, simply by being sovereign, became the spark that lit the fire of his awakening, or the ghost that haunted him forever. The longer her silence endures, the more it transforms within him. At first, it feels like punishment, a deliberate cruelty meant to wound his pride. Then, as time passes, it mutates into something more potent, fascination. Her absence begins to glow with the intensity of presence. The less she gives, the more he feels her. This is the paradox Jung spoke of. What is repressed in the conscious mind grows in power in the unconscious. By not chasing, she enters him more deeply than she ever could through pursuit. She becomes not just a woman he once knew, but an archetype inscribed on his soul. To understand this dynamic is to understand why obsession often grows in silence rather than in noise. When she does not chase, he is left with his own imagination, and the imagination is far more dangerous than reality. Reality can disappoint. Reality can be explained away, but imagination builds her into something mythic. Every unanswered question, every withheld word becomes an opening through which fantasy rushes in. And in fantasy, she is flawless, untouchable, immortal. He is no longer chasing her body, her voice, or her time. He is chasing the phantom she has become in his psyche. Yet, what appears to him as cruelty is in fact sovereignty. For the woman who does not chase is not playing a game. She is not withholding in order to manipulate. She simply refuses to make herself smaller. She knows that the moment she bends to chase, she trades her throne for chains. So she remains still, not as a strategy, but as a truth. And in that truth lies her power. You may wonder then, what does this mean for the woman herself? Does her refusal leave her cold, untouched, disconnected? Not at all, for she too feels the pull of the old conditioning, the temptation to reach, to soften the silence, to rescue the connection from its unraveling. But each time she resists that pull, she deepens her own individuation. She steps further away from the archetype of the dependent maiden and closer to the sovereign queen. Jung would call this the process of integrating the self, reclaiming the pieces of her soul scattered in the search for external love. This is where the feminine mystery turns dangerous, not only for him, but for the entire dynamic of relationship as society has constructed it. The scripts begin to fail. The woman is no longer chasing, the man is no longer certain, and the old game collapses. In its place arises something far more unsettling: the possibility of true connection, one not built on need, but on choice. And this is terrifying, for it means that love can no longer be assumed. It must be earned. It must be mutual. It must be sovereign meeting sovereign. The Stoics understood this tension as well. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes unshakable only when it ceases to depend on what it cannot control. The woman who does not chase embodies this philosophy in her very posture. She does not attempt to control the outcome. She does not attempt to hold what does not wish to stay. Her strength is not in forcing the bond, but in allowing it to either stand or shatter. This allowance terrifies men because it reveals how fragile their power truly is. And so he wrestles. He tries to pull her back into the game, to lure her into chasing, to reestablish the old rhythm where he could rest in the comfort of her pursuit. But she does not move. Her stillness is her crown, her silence her fortress. She knows that to chase is to abandon herself, and she will not make that sacrifice again. This is why her memory becomes so indelible. She is not remembered for what she gave, but for what she refused to give. She is not unforgettable because she offered herself endlessly, but because she withheld what the ego craves most: the assurance of being needed. By not chasing, she places him face to face with his deepest fear, that he was never the center of her world. And here lies the dangerous mystery. The woman who does not chase does not weaken the bond. She transforms it. She forces love to either rise into something sacred or collapse under the weight of its illusions. There is no middle ground, no safe compromise. In her sovereignty, she demands that he meet her in truth or lose her forever. And this is why he cannot forget her. For even if he lets her go, even if he finds another, the echo of her sovereignty will follow him like a shadow. Over time, the obsession becomes a teacher. What begins as frustration and wounded pride transforms into something closer to reverence. He starts to realize that her silence was never about cruelty. It was about truth. She did not chase because she would not betray herself. She would not collapse into dependency, nor barter her dignity for attention. And in the mirror of her sovereignty, he sees what he lacks: the capacity to stand whole within himself. This realization does not come easily. It is carved through nights of restless thought, through moments when the noise of the world fades and he is left alone with the memory of her detachment. That memory is not a chain she placed upon him. It is a chain he discovers he has always worn. The chain of needing to be pursued, validated, mirrored. The chain of fearing abandonment so deeply that he must always ensure someone is running after him. Her refusal revealed the shackle, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. Jung taught that the feminine in a man's psyche, the anima, is both muse and tormentor. She is the carrier of his soul's longing, yet also the mirror of his wounds. When he meets a woman who does not chase, he projects onto her this anima with unbearable intensity. She becomes both his dream and his despair. He cannot hold her, yet he cannot release her. He feels trapped not by her actions, but by his own psyche's awakening. The woman, meanwhile, walks a different path. She may feel his pull, sense his obsession, hear the whispers of longing in the spaces between words. Yet she does not move toward it. She has learned that to chase is to diminish. To contort herself for love is to abandon her soul. So she holds her silence, not as a weapon, but as a sanctuary. In this sanctuary, she is free. In this sanctuary, she belongs to herself. You who hear this, do you know how radical this posture truly is? To refuse to chase is to break with centuries of conditioning. It is to defy the narrative that a woman's worth is measured by her ability to keep a man. It is to step outside the role of caretaker, pursuer, pleaser, and into the role of sovereign being. And sovereignty, by its very nature, carries mystery. For a sovereign cannot be controlled, only approached. She cannot be bought, only chosen. She cannot be forced, only met. This is why her mystery is dangerous, because it overturns the balance of the ego's world. The man is left standing at the threshold of something greater, the possibility of love without possession, intimacy without control, attraction without games. But to step into this requires a death, the death of his ego, the collapse of his shadow, the surrender of the fantasy that a woman exists to complete him. Some men cannot take this step. They recoil. They call her too independent, too cold, too distant. They return to the comfort of women who chase, who soften their insecurities, who confirm their illusions. But even there, the ghost of her follows them. For once a man has encountered the sovereign feminine, he cannot fully return to ignorance. He has tasted something truer, even if it terrified him. Others, however, begin to awaken. They sense that her refusal was an invitation, not to chase her, but to chase themselves, to turn inward, to integrate, to grow into a man who no longer demands pursuit, but stands whole in his own presence. For only then can he meet her, not as a boy craving validation, but as a man offering truth. And what of her? She does not wait. She does not linger in the hope that he will arrive. She continues her path, luminous and steady, building her life not as bait for love, but as an expression of her soul. If he meets her again, it will not be because she chased. It will be because he caught up. If he does not, she remains unshaken, for her worth was never tethered to his recognition. This is the revelation. The dangerous mystery of the woman who does not chase is not about absence at all. It is about presence, her presence to herself. She becomes unforgettable, not because she withheld love, but because she embodied it first within herself. And that kind of power, once seen, cannot be forgotten. The man either resists it, haunted for years by what he could not control, or he rises to meet it, remade by the very silence that once unmade him. In either case, she has altered him forever. The woman who does not chase is not a riddle to be solved. She is the reminder that love is not conquest, but co-creation. That intimacy is not earned by pursuit, but by presence. That the soul cannot awaken until it faces the mirror of sovereignty. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.